In this section, we want to talk about an extremely important feature that we've been overlooking, and it's critical. We've done some work here, perhaps a lot of work, but we haven't saved it. If power failed right now, we might be out of luck. All the work we've done is gone. We want to talk about saving our workbook, and we also want to talk about how to open it later and how to create a new workbook from scratch. After using your worksheet for a while, you may decide that having the grid lines off isn't such a good idea. It's all personal preference, but let's remind ourselves how we turn on and turn off the grid lines. If we simply point to the Tools command in the menu and slide down to the choice called Options, we will then see these 8 tabs. And it's the View tab that we want to use. It's already selected here. And the word Grid Lines is one of our Windows options. We'll click on Grid Lines and then OK. The grid lines will return. Do notice, however, that some of our border features, like the double underline in row 3, is still visible, although maybe it's not as prominent as it used to be. We've done a number of things here. We've put in data, we've put in numbers, we've added formulas, we used functions, we changed the color of some cells, we talked about color background. At some point, we do want to save our work. Everything we've created so far is being held for us in working memory in our computer, in RAM. If power failed, we'd have a problem here. This information is gone. So we do want to talk about saving our work. And one thing we want to be sensitive to in Excel 97 is the fact that when we save our work, it will be saved in a format that might not be readable with previous versions of Excel. If you're in a situation where your environment is in transition from previous versions of Excel into Excel 97, you want to be sensitive to how you are saving your work. Save, by the way, means take the current workbook that we have created and copy it either to a hard drive or a diskette. So we want to go to the File command. We'll show you other ways too. Let's click on the word File. It's the leftmost of our menu commands. If you have any doubt about Save, you want to be concerned about these 2 choices, Save and Save As. Save is normally used after a workbook has been saved at least once. If there's any doubt, click on Save As. Now, this will happen automatically if the workbook that you're currently using has never been saved at all. But let's just go through the motions of pointing out the fact that when you save a file, you want to have some control over where the file is being saved, what its name is, and what type it is. You'll notice the file name Book 1 is suggested at the bottom of this, or in this panel here where it says File Name. That may not be too descriptive, so you can click in here and retype it. You don't have to worry about the XLS being there, but you can certainly leave it there. If you simply were to type in a name and didn't have the XLS, Excel would do it for you anyway. So let's just suppose we click in here, and I'm going to use the backspace key. And instead of calling this Book 1, I'm going to save it as Profits, Profits. And maybe this information pertains to 1997, so I'll just call it Profits 97. A file name, by the way, can have up to 218 characters. I can't imagine it being that large, but that's the limitation there. You can use numbers. Some special characters, like slashes and asterisks, you cannot use, but most people don't keep track of those, and they tend not to use them. Letters and numbers are recommended. You can use a hyphen, but in general, stay away from some of the special characters, some of which work, some of which don't. Now, here's the issue with regard to Excel 97. If we were to name this and go through other changes that we need to make here and click on the word Save, we would be saving this in Excel 97 style. If this file needs to be read by someone using Excel 5.0 or Excel 7.0 for Windows 95, you want to save this using a different type. And by clicking on this arrow right here, you will see other choices. And you'll notice one choice down here that says Excel, Microsoft Excel 97 and 5.0/95. This might be the recommended choice here. Again, this is critical if you're in an environment or different versions of Excel are going to be used. If this is not an issue, if everybody in your environment or everybody that you interact with is using Excel 97, the standard choice here, Microsoft Excel Workbook, is just fine. So for our example, I am going to use the Excel 97 default, which is as you see it here. So at this stage, we're saying we're going to name this workbook Profits 97. We're going to store it as an Office 97 format. But a bigger question, perhaps, is where are we going to store it? And there are a number of ways to proceed here, but one way to help you get your bearings is if you click on this down arrow next to this panel, it's called the Save In panel. You click on the down arrow. You could save this on the A drive if you have a diskette, on the C drive, or possibly on some other device. The D drive here is CD-ROM. You might have a writable CD that might be on a different drive. But let's say for most people, most of the time, they're going to be saving their information either on the diskette in the A drive or perhaps on the C drive. I'm going to click on the C drive. What I have on my C drive and what you have on your C drive are likely to be quite different. What we first see here are various folders on the C drive. And presumably you have some sense of the software and the data files that are stored on the C drive. So at this point, you have to have an idea of where you want your information, in this case, your Excel workbook, to be stored. I may choose to save my Excel workbook in any of these different folders. And if you're familiar with Windows, you know that folders might contain folders, and those folders might contain folders. But in this case, I'm simply going to put this file into a folder called My Files, which is right here, and I'll simply double-click it. And there are folders within it, but I want this file to be just within the folder called My Files. Remember, we named it earlier, Profits 97. We said it was going to be an Excel workbook. This is 97 style. We're all set. We can click on the word Save. The workbook is now saved. It is a file called Profits 97. If you look at the top of the screen, in the formula bar, Microsoft Excel, and then the name of this workbook. Remember, a file is a workbook. This is a workbook or a file, whatever you prefer to call it, same thing. Its name is Profits 97. It's a 3-sheet workbook. Now earlier we had changed the names here. It's a 3-sheet workbook, but there's nothing in sheet 2 as I point to the bottom here. Sheet 2 is empty, sheet 3 is empty. The first sheet, which we had renamed earlier, called Eastern, maybe that name isn't appropriate now, but for the time being, we'll leave it there. Remember, we can change it at any time. So we have saved this information. As we make additional changes to it, suppose we're going to put in YTD profits in cell A5. I'm going to type in YTD space profits and hit enter. I've made a change here. Presumably, I might go ahead and make 50 changes, 100 changes. What I should do, and any good user of software probably knows, as you make changes, the new changes are only being held in working memory and RAM. They're not going to diskette or hard drive. What you want to do periodically is save your work again. And the fastest way to do this is simply point to this tool in your toolbar. It's the same as using the command File Save, and it simply means take the information as it now appears on the screen, copy it out to my file so that it's updated. You might say this is like an update button. If you want to open another file, remember you can leave this file open also. We can have many files open at once in Excel. Sometimes that's even useful. We can go to the command File Open, and do notice, by the way, when you click on the File command, that the word Open even has an icon next to it reminding you that there's a tool in the toolbar that you can get to even faster. So I'm just going to click on the word File again to close the menu, and do open the file right from the second button in the toolbar there called Open. We'll click on that. And as before, when we were saving a workbook, we have the ability to open a file wherever it might be. And so in this case, let's suppose that it is on the C drive. you would have to know which directory to look at. So in this case, we are going to look at the directory called My Documents. Folder called My Documents. We'll double click on that. And there is the file we may have been looking for. It's called shirts.xls, an Excel file. And we can either double click on it or click on the word open. Double click on it is slightly faster. And here's a file. You see the name at the top of the screen. It's called Shirts. It's open. It's not a large file. Our other file is still open. In fact, if you point to the window command, top of your screen, and click, you'll see at the bottom here there are two files. Shirts is currently the one we're looking at. The other one is called Profits 97. If we click on that, you'll see that. And there's even a way to display both of these together. So we opened a file. Now sometimes you want to create a brand new workbook. The leftmost button